Hi all, this is Dr. Kala S.J., an Associate Professor of English at Fatima College, Madurai. And my email ID is sjkalalbert@yahoo.co.in. In case of any queries, you can just mail me. And now today we're going to look at the most interesting and the most popular literary genre, novel, as a literary form. So now let's look at how and when this literary form evolved. It emerged in the 17th and 18th centuries, and very particularly it evolved from the earlier narrative traditions such as epic poetry, drama, and romance. It is known for its extended prose narrative with complex plots, detailed character development, and exploration of themes and social issues. So now let's look at the novel as a prose narrative. Unlike any poetry or drama, wherein a poetry meter plays an important role and dialogue has a uh, major significance in drama, novel primarily relies on prose for storytelling. That doesn't mean that there is no novel in the poetic form. There are quite a few. So now, novel relies on prose for storytelling, and it allows for a more naturalistic and detailed portrayal of characters, settings, and events. So now, from the prose, a novel as a prose narrative, let's move on to look at the length of a novel. Novels are typically very long, and they are compared to, particularly when they are compared to any other shorter narrative forms, especially a short story or a novella. It's this length that provides the novelist or the author with a canvas to delve deeply into multiple plot lines, so not just one, multiple plot lines, subplots, characters, and it paves way for the readers to have a more immersive experience. So now, from the length of the novel, we move on to learn about the characters. Now, what do we know about the characters? This, in the introductory slide, I told you about how novel has ample provision to develop characters. So, novel has the ability to develop complex and multi-dimensional characters. Sometimes we are at awe in the way they are chiseled out. And the authors normally explore characters' motivations, personalities, and growth over a period of time, creating a realistic and relatable individual. Sometimes we tend to relate them with our next door neighbors, even, or the ones whom we come across at a workplace, and so on. And that way, the readers can be connected with the characters developed in a novel. Not just that, the characters are the essential elements that drive the narrative forward, and characters keep the readers engaged throughout the reading. Now, who is a protagonist? A main character around whom the story revolves is called a protagonist. And this protagonist may be a male or a female who undergoes development or change throughout the novel, not just at one point of time, but throughout the novel. And a character who is just opposite to the protagonist is called an antagonist, and he is an opposing force or opposes everything that the protagonist does. And this antagonist has the role to create a conflict and tension in the story. And now, with regard to the next type of characters whom we normally classify, so we saw the protagonist, we saw the antagonist. Now we look at the major characters. Sometimes there might be questions on a particular novel saying, give a critique of the major characters. Now, who are these major characters? They are significant figures in the novel who have substantial roles to play in the novel, especially in the movement of the plot. And they often undergo development or contribute significantly to the story's themes. So, if there are major characters, there ought to be a group of characters called minor characters. So, these minor characters are supporting characters who play similar roles, smaller roles, and so they are called minor characters. Still, though they are minor characters, still they can have their own impact on the story. How? Through the interactions with the protagonist or through other major characters. So now there are other kinds of characters also, like you have round characters who are complex, multidimensional, and realistic. They have depth in their personalities and are highly motivated and have a wonderful background portrayed beautifully by the novelist. Then you have the flat characters who are very, when compared to the round characters, are relatively simple and not multi-dimensional like the round characters, but they are only one-dimensional or single-dimensional, and they have a specific plan or a role to perform in the novel, and they have a particular function in the plot, and they do not have much development as the round characters. Then the next type of characters are the dynamic characters or the static characters. Dynamic characters, based on the change, they are divided or categorized. Dynamic characters undergo significant change, and they have development throughout the course of the novel, whereas static characters, as the name suggests, remain unchanged or they hardly exhibit any development throughout the story. Then we move on to the plots. Novels have intricate plots, and these plots are endowed with multiple twists, turns, and layers of meanings. And the authors wonderfully interweave various narrative threads and subplots, themes, and when they do that, they create a rich tapestry and that will really engage the readers intellectually as well as emotionally. Now, plot refers to the sequence of events. They are different from the story. Do not ever confuse the plot with a story. Plot always refers to the movement of the story. So, plot refers to the sequence of events, and plot helps in making the storyline and it helps in driving the narrative forward. A plot has events, conflicts, and resolutions that keep unfolding throughout the story. Now, to begin with, in a plot, you will find an exposition wherein the characters are introduced, setting is introduced, and then there is an initial situation which sets the stage for the story, and it provides the much needed background information. Then you have, after the exposition, you have the next part of a plot, which is inciting incident. This is an event or a circumstance which sets the main conflict in motion, and it triggers the protagonist into action. So in the beginning of the exposition, you saw something all set. Now that status quo is disrupted, and you find that there is a change in whatever you saw in the exposition. Next in the plot is the rising action. This rising action is a series of events that build tension and develop the conflict that was built in the inciting incidents. It's the part of the plot that shows how the characters respond to certain amount of challenges presented by the inciting incidents. After the rising action, you have the climax. So climax is not the end of the story. You have the climax where the plot reaches the highest point of tension and drama in the story. And here it is here that the main conflict reaches its peak too. And in this point, or in this part of the climax or plot, that's the climax, you find a turning point. And this turning point will often determine the outcome of the narrative. Next in plot comes the falling action. So after climax, it's the falling action. And it is in this falling action you find that the events that occurred as a result of the climax. And these will lead you towards the resolution of the conflict. And it is here in this part of the plot, all the loose ends are tied up and you are prepared, or you brace yourself for the conclusion. So after this, you have the resolution or the denouement. It's the final outcome or conclusion of the story. And here you get to know more about the character and how the character has been affected, a particular character or characters have been affected by course of events. And most of the conflicts are resolved here, especially those that didn't get resolved in the previous part, they get resolved here. Then we understand that, so that's one part of the plot, it gets over there. Now plot or structure, why do we need that? And what is the purpose of a plot? It helps in organizing the events of a novel in a coherent and engaging manner, because without a plot you will not try to appreciate the story, and it guides the reader throughout the narrative journey. That's to say, from the beginning of the novel till the end. I'm not saying from the beginning of the story till the end, because the way the story moves on will be different in a plot. And then each novel differs in its complexity and the style based on its plot. And these elements are the backbone of the storytelling in a novel. What about the themes? The themes provide the novel with a platform for exploring different issues, relevant to the society, culture, human experience. And the authors tend to address social, political, philosophical, and moral questions through the experiences and interactions of their characters. Now, so now we are going to deal with certain common themes. Naturally, the first thing that comes to our mind is love. So there are three different types of love that you come across in novels. They are romantic love as portrayed by Bronte in Wuthering Heights, then familial love as you discover in Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, then unrequited love by Flaubert in Madame Bovary. Then the next theme is identity and self-discovery, as you find in Toni Morrison's Beloved, good versus evil in The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and then coming of age theme in Stephen Chbosky's Perks of Being a Wallflower, power and corruption in Golding's Lord of the Flies, society, you find about the society, because we know that literature is a mirror of the society. So in most of the novels you'll find society and other social issues there mirrored, but very particularly you'll find society and class in certain categories of novels, and one such as Huxley's Brave New World. Then you have freedom and confinement in, as you discover in Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, hope and despair in Orwell's 1984, survival in Golding's Lord of the Flies, revenge and redemption in Melville's, as you find in Melville's Moby Dick, justice and injustice, and one example is Victor Hugo's La Mirabelle, war and peace by Tolstoy's War and Peace. No other novel can be a suitable. The next common themes are faith and doubt as portrayed by Jan Martel in his The Life of Pi, which is a very famous novel. Then you have human nature depicted by Ray Bradbury in his Fahrenheit 451. Next is nature and the environment by Rachel Carson in Silent Spring. Technology and progress In Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Genres. There are a wide range or wide types of novels. They are literary fiction, historical fiction, romance, science fiction, fantasy, mystery, and thriller. And authors tend to cater to the various readers' interests and preferences. Next, we see how novels are quite engaging and how they engage the reader. Novels captivate readers' attention and they provoke thought through compelling storytelling, vivid imagery, emotional resonance, and thematic depth. And they have this immersive nature of novels which encourages readers to invest in the characters and their journeys. So, novel as a form continues to evolve and adapt to cultural and technological changes, remaining a powerful medium for storytelling, reflection, and exploration of the human condition. So, thank you for your patient watching.